To catch everyone's attention, Lloyd stood on top of the mansion in front of a crowd of workers. He shouted, telling them he knew it would be hard to believe, but he declared that he could stop time. He proclaimed to everyone that he would stop time for 1 year for the sake of the construction. Naturally, it seemed impossible for someone to stop time, so the crowd appeared confused by what their master was saying. Lloyd scratched the back of his head, thinking they weren't buying what he was claiming. Still, Lloyd was sure they were all surprised by his sudden announcement that he could stop time. Then, a notification popped up, stating that the title's linked effect, Absolute Trust, was taking place. Suddenly, the former White Lancer head, Valalady Blank, shouted while crying, as though he were praising a god. Valalady shouted to everyone that whatever Lloyd said goes. This White Lancer was more loyal than your girlfriend. Other people also began shouting that whatever Lloyd said goes. One of the workers shouted that Lloyd could summon monsters. Then they started chanting again, whatever Lloyd says goes. Another shouted that Lloyd could even control a bone dragon. The crowd chanted once again, praising Lloyd. Javier just watched these poor fanatics, but who wouldn't go crazy for Lloyd when even demons were obsessed with his face and voice? The fanatics had gone wild, shouting that they would do whatever Lloyd said. Even Lloyd had gone crazy, raising his arms to boost their morale. Javier, on the other hand, looked at Lloyd and the people, wondering in his mind if the villagers were still sane. A window notification popped up, saying that Lloyd had consumed 3,000 RP to freeze time. The entire estate was surrounded by a large sphere, and time outside was frozen. Then, Lloyd's heart began to freeze after using the time freeze skill. He clutched his chest due to the pain, and his breath turned cold. Javier asked his master if he was all right. Lloyd replied, saying he wasn't but smiled crazily, claiming he was just too excited at the thought of building the truth jewel. Many formulas appeared in his mind, formulas belonging to the smartest engineer, Lloyd Frontera. Despite his lack of extensive knowledge, Lloyd revised the design using his simulation skill and eventually completed the perfect blueprint. He planned to create pathways to remove water from the area where the truth jewel would be, then begin the dam's construction. Lloyd knew they were limited by the technology of the time, so he planned to use Spain's Taibai Dam as a model. It is a legendary dam built in the Middle Ages that still functioned. Lloyd was thinking that simultaneously with building the dam, they would also construct the truth jewel, which was the most important part. He smiled at the thought, feeling they were progressing by leaps and bounds. What made him happiest was thinking that soon he would be rewarded for all the hard work he had put in. Then, a voice could be heard in his head, sounding like someone testing a microphone. The voice called Lloyd ugly and terrible at singing, asking if Lloyd could hear him. Hearing this, Lloyd thought the voice sounded familiar. It was the voice of the Dragon King. Verkis said it was indeed him speaking to Lloyd and told him to come quickly, stating that what he had to say was a super emergency. Verkis warned Lloyd that he might not be able to complete the truth jewel. This alarmed Lloyd, and he ran so fast he could outrun the Flash as he rushed to the Dragon King. Javier simply watched his master sprinting away. Lloyd, panting heavily, eventually slowed as he approached the lazy Dragon King, who was lounging on a sofa. Verkis told Lloyd that his neck was stiff and asked for a massage. Still breathing heavily, Lloyd, serious now, asked the Dragon King what he had meant about the emergency preventing the truth jewel from being built. Verkis replied that his stiff neck was the emergency. He warned Lloyd that if he didn't get a massage, he might get really angry and destroy everything. Hearing this, Lloyd's veins bulged in frustration. He had thought it was a real emergency, only to find it was a lazy dragon's stiff neck. Lloyd cursed the dragon in his mind and was on the verge of going Super Saiyan as his hands began to glow with mana. He wanted to beat the lazy Dragon King through the massage. Lloyd asked Verkis if his neck was really stiff, to which Verkis replied that it was in pain and needed a quick massage. Lloyd's face twisted into a level 999 mythical glory rank of ugliness that could even rival the faces of demons in hell. Pouring more mana into his hands, Lloyd planned to massage the Dragon King so intensely that Verkis would scream in pain. The mana in Lloyd's body condensed as he poured it all into his hands. Lloyd became the incarnation of the Demon King, his face crazed with fury. He clenched his hand and gripped the back of Verkis's neck, thinking, "How dare this lizard play tricks when I'm so busy?" He pushed with every ounce of strength, mentally shouting, "Die," while his face burned with the desire to blow the Dragon King into pieces. Yet, despite all his efforts, the Dragon King didn't feel a thing. Verkis asked what Lloyd was doing, wondering why he wasn't putting in enough strength. This made Lloyd even angrier as the veins on his face grew larger. He thought to himself that, after all, the Dragon King was still a dragon, which is why Verkis didn't feel much. Lloyd decided it was alright to go all out now. In his mind, he would become a monster, devouring the screams of others like food. He intended to have a feast by making the lizard scream. Lloyd went crazy, putting everything into the massage, pushing again and again while clenching his fists. He even shouted as he massaged the lazy Dragon King. But the Dragon King remained unfazed, telling Lloyd that his efforts were weak and that he was disappointed in him. Lloyd's face transformed into another meme-worthy expression as he ground his teeth out of frustration. He wanted to beat this lizard, thinking that the Dragon King was driving him insane. Lloyd wanted to tell Verkis that he was the first person to ever annoy him this much. Then, a window popped up, stating that Lloyd had gained a new skill. This caught Lloyd's attention, thinking it might be something that could help him beat the Dragon King. But the new skill was titled Absolute Ugly Man. The system told Lloyd that he was now a being of unbelievable ugliness, regardless of whether he was angry or crying. It informed him that anyone who saw his face would exclaim, "Oh man, what the hell is that ugly face?" Lloyd, shocked, asked the system what kind of skill this was, reminding it that he was considered handsome before he came to this world. The system agreed that Lloyd's face, back when he was in Seoul as Kim Suho, was indeed what Lloyd claimed. But the system added, "So what though? Right now, you look like poop in this world." Lloyd, still in Super Saiyan mode while massaging the lazy Dragon King, was interrupted when Verkis called him. Lloyd asked what it was, and Verkis inquired, hypothetically, if they were to change fate with the Truth Jewel, what would Lloyd do afterward? Lloyd was still wiggling his hand while putting every strength in pushing the neck of the lazy dragon. Lloyd, who was confused, repeats the Dragon King's question to clarify. The Dragon King tells Lloyd that he is asking about what he will do with the Truth Jewel. Lloyd asks for pardon because it seems the question didn't sink into his mind. Then Lloyd says that there is one course he will take. He will destroy the Truth Jewel after using it. This catches the Dragon King's attention as he looks back at Lloyd. Lloyd's face was like someone who is about to poop while he is putting a lot of strength into the Dragon King's neck. He tells the Dragon King that having something like the Truth Jewel would bring nothing but headaches, and it would only get in the way of his life of fun and rest. As the system predicted, the Dragon King, looking at Lloyd's face, says, "Oh man, what an ugly face." After Lloyd hears this, he thinks his face looks like that because of this damn dragon. Hearing what Lloyd said makes Verkis smile. He feels at peace, thinking that it seems the Truth Jewel won't be used for evil purposes. Verkis looks at Lloyd as someone like him, someone who truly dreams of doing nothing. The Dragon King tells Lloyd that it is fine now and that he can leave. Lloyd replies, asking him what he means because he is not done yet. But actually, what Lloyd meant when he said he was not done yet is that he was not finished hearing the scream of this Dragon King. The system pops up, telling Lloyd that he has pushed the function of his mana heart to the limit. Lloyd, who is annoyed at the dragon, starts to get more annoyed. He tells the system to stop it, then asks the system what it is trying to do again. The system says that his mana heart skill has increased in level and that he has already become an advanced sword expert level 1. Lloyd is confused about what this expert means. Then a notification appears saying that Lloyd receives a passive option, which is the swordmaster syndrome. Now all of his senses have become greatly enhanced. The Dragon King, Verkis, notices that Lloyd is acting strange. So Verkis asks Lloyd what is wrong and if he is okay. But what Verkis says multiplies from what Lloyd hears. It continuously repeats again and again, entering his ears. At the same time, the question starts to feel so strong as it enters his ears, like his ears are about to burst from the loudness. Lloyd bends his knees because of it, and he closes his ears with his hands. He shouts that his ears are hurting. Verkis asks him if there is earwax stuck in his ears. Lloyd, still shouting, says it's not that, but swordmaster syndrome. Verkis says he is amazed and congratulates Lloyd, saying that it's nice. This makes Lloyd even crazier as the sound vibrates through his ears. As Lloyd leaves the area, walking in the hallway of the estate, he is still covering his ears, but the noises of animals can be heard by him clearly, from the chirping of birds, the oinking of pigs, and even the rustling of the wind. Lloyd curses, thinking he has so much to do for the construction, which is why he doesn't care whether he becomes a swordmaster or not. Lloyd wonders if he should just use RP to level up his mana heart, but he stops himself, thinking that if he does that, he might not have RP to stop fate. Then Javier appears and calls out to his master, Lloyd. Javier asks if he is experiencing swordmaster syndrome. This question makes Lloyd shout, as those noises are like screams in his ears. This guy has gone crazy with this syndrome, but his ears didn't break when he was singing. Lloyd looks back and raises his hand, telling Javier to be quiet. He tells Javier not to talk to him. Javier is just silent, looking at him. But this time, Javier is so happy, maybe thinking it's time now to take revenge on this crazy master who orders him around so much while being underpaid. Javier wants to explain it in detail. He clenches his fist, excited. Javier says that Lloyd needs to throw himself into silence. He needs to face the extremely sharp and sensitive senses and focus on them. Javier adds that his master needs to pull them close and embrace them until he achieves true silence. But that advice makes Lloyd's ears start bleeding because of the sound vibrations. Lloyd ends up on the ground, covering his ears. Javier doesn't worry about his master and instead just looks at him. Then he starts teasing his master, laughing at him while pointing his finger at Lloyd. He tells Lloyd that he can do it. Lloyd is angry and annoyed at this. He shouts at Javier, asking if that is the face he makes when he cheers someone on. He even tells Javier that he will kill him. But Lloyd notices something. As someone who became a swordmaster, he realizes that right now, he can see so clearly. He plans to look at Javier's face because, at this moment, he feels like he can see even the blemishes on Javier's face. But Javier poses like a handsome model. Lloyd shouts, questioning why Javier doesn't even have blemishes. Lloyd tells Javier that those poses irritate him so much, so he orders Javier to stop. Although Javier pranks Lloyd a lot, he stayed awake for a few nights since he had experienced it before and helped Lloyd get used to the new senses he has. Then, at the construction site, Lloyd looks stressed. A few months have already passed since the construction of the dam and the Truth Jewel is almost complete. Then Javier appears behind Lloyd. He asks his master if he is alright and inquires about the swordmaster syndrome. He tells Lloyd that he seems pretty stable, even at the construction site. Lloyd is annoyed by what Javier is doing. Javier apologizes for speaking too loudly, saying he didn't do it on purpose, but on second thought, he guesses that this could be considered a type of training. Lloyd is angry, shouting at Javier to stop it. He asks Javier if he is enjoying this. Javier says he misunderstood and adds that he is really worried about him, but Javier's face is happy, not the face of someone who is worried. He is able to bully his master this time. Javier says he meant what he said. Lloyd just lets Javier be and says that he can see Javier sincerely having fun. Lloyd points his finger at Javier and warns him to wait, as he will show Javier just how terrifying an employer can be. While Lloyd is talking to Javier, a song can be heard in the area. A bright light appears with a song within it. Lloyd slowly looks back, asking what it is. He says he hears some kind of holy singing. Lloyd covers his eyes as the light is so bright. He is speechless because he can't see clearly. There is a person in the bright light that catches Lloyd's attention. It slowly descends and points to the center of the sun. It is an angel with wide wings and a bright light. Lloyd is alarmed, looking at it. The angel slowly says something. He tells Lloyd that it is nice to meet him. He introduces himself as Raphael, the Lower Realm Inspection Bureau chairman and an officer of the Heavenly Realm. He says he is there to tell Lloyd about an enforcement order. Lloyd starts questioning the angel in his mind. Lloyd feels something ominous. Then Gabriel suddenly moves his hand at a fast rate, opening the document that was sent by the Heavenly Realm. He starts reading the enforcement order, saying that the order is for the building owner, Lloyd Frontera. The order is to stop the construction of the illegal building, Aotearoa, and to destroy everything that has been built. Lloyd is speechless and alarmed by what he hears. He starts asking Gabriel what he said again. Now, will Lloyd be able to build the truth jewel and get the answer on how he can contradict fate? But I believe that Lloyd will become another model of the Archangel, as he was even able to manipulate the demons in hell.